Welcome back. Connor Happer, Josh Yatson with you on a Friday edition of the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com. Indiana will return to Memorial Stadium this fall. They take on Nebraska October 19th. That game time is set for either 11 a.m., 2:30, 3, or 6:30. So at least you got your plans, Thank God for the television networks. And also the television network is TBA. For more on the Hoosiers, let's chat here with Sammy Jacobs of HoosierHuddle.com. Joins us now on the 42 Degrees of Source hotline. Sammy, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you're telling me at some point on October 19th, there will be a football game in Bloomington, Indiana between Nebraska and the Hoosiers?
That is the plan.
At some point?
That is the plan. Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's on the road. Yeah, it's on the road for Nebraska. Yes, I am telling you that at some point during that day. We just don't know how early or how late.
Yeah. Sounds about right for where the sport is going.
Yeah. And, well, I tell you what, both these teams, before they meet, have some interesting sort of lead-ups. I mean, Indiana in their first year under Curt Cignetti, we're obviously going to talk plenty about during this conversation. But let's go with the schedule first. So I don't know if people know this. Indiana starts with FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, and Northwestern. It's relatively light, and I know it hasn't been easy, but when you look at those first 6 games, there's got to be some Indiana fans who are excited now with a new coach that are kind of looking at that schedule and thinking, hey, we might be able to do some damage here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you go back to the COVID season, IU opened up with Penn State at home, and then, 2021, you have to play at Iowa. 22, you have Illinois, who ended up winning, I think, 8 games that year. And then 23 opened up with Ohio State. So not opening up with the Big Ten opponent is, kind of a break. Getting out of that Big Ten East makes that schedule a heck of a lot easier, even though IU does still play Ohio State and Michigan later in the year. But it is a chance for Curt Cignetti and his coaching tenure to get off to a fast start with Florida International, and then Western Illinois. And then, of course, you travel out to UCLA, who's going through their changes too. Before, coming home, playing Charlotte and Maryland and Northwestern. And, you think if IU could get through that at least 4-2, you're in pretty good shape under a first-year head coach.
All right, so what is Curt Cignetti? I think everybody in the Big Ten got their introduction to him yesterday. Or over the last couple of days. He's certainly not afraid to express his confidence in the program that they're building. What has he brought that has been most noticeable before they've played any games at Indiana?
I mean, he's a guy that we haven't seen that type of confidence and bravado at Indiana, at least with the football program, probably ever. Maybe since Bill Mallory was there in the 80s and early 90s. But to go up there on national television and drop a word that's probably not allowed to be said.
Definitely not.
Say, like, hey, the expectations, we don't want to be 10th in the Big Ten. We don't want to be 4th in the Big Ten. The expectation is we want to be the best. And, you don't go into Indiana football, who was the first program to lose 700 games all time, and say that. It just hasn't happened. And to come in with that much confidence is, at least from the fan base's standpoint, a breath of fresh air. And, it's something that IU hasn't had. And, maybe it works. If you win and have that confidence, and he's won his entire career. He said earlier in his spring practice, hey, I win. Google me is what he sells to recruits. So, he has a track record of turning programs who haven't been very good around. And, his record speaks for itself. And he's going to, take it, see if his formula works at the Big Ten. His staff he's bringing along has been with him for a long time. And I think that's going to go a long way. You look at the end of the Tom Allen era, and there was a lot of coordinator turnover and a lot of coaching turnover. And you guys know at Nebraska as well as we do, you need some continuity in your coaching staff to build success and not have to install a new offense or a new defense every single year, especially with the transfer portal coming in. And that's where I think Cignetti hit a home run too, is he brings some of these really high performers from JMU who know the system, who know the culture, to come in and and help him set the tone.
How does his bravado and what I mean, you mentioned it, Google me, and he's really confident in where he's going to take Indiana, and he's confident right now in where they're going this year. Like, how does that sit with a fan base who, I mean, they haven't necessarily experienced much success in football, like you said, a 9-win season a couple years ago. How does that sit with are they fully embracing what he's bringing to the table in his first couple months?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm from the East Coast, so I'm used to this cockiness and all that stuff. So this is not new to me. But yeah, for the fan base, they're pumped up about it. But it was also a little shocking. Like, oh, wait a minute, he actually said that. And when he came out onto the basketball court the day he was hired, in front of 17,000 fans, and said Purdue sucks, but also Michigan and Ohio State. The people went crazy, and then said, "Oh, wait, hold on, did he actually say that?" And aren't we scared of Michigan and Ohio? No, they've been kicking our butts since forever. So what's the worst that could happen? You lose 70-10. Like, he's playing.
Yeah.
He's playing with house money, and his confidence is something new that IU football has not seen.
All right, you mentioned what he's brought with him, a whole bunch of James Madison players. What's the personnel look like? Obviously, there's been a ton of turnover, but if you start kind of at the quarterback position and you look around, what does the team and its personnel actually look like to you in his first season?
Yeah, it's a win now roster. You bring in a lot of veterans, starting with quarterback Curtis Rourke from Ohio, who is the 2022 MAC Player of the Year. He's coming off injury last year. Played decently, but not at the level he did 2022. You'll think that he'll come in and lead that room. You still have David Jackson there. You bring in 4 new running backs from the transfer portal, a couple of them from JMU, and another from Wake Forest and UNC. Veteran guys who, that screams to me a win now. You're not building with freshmen, and you have these veteran guys who've been in the program with Cignetti, veteran guys who've been at places that won games, have gone to bowl games. And then on defense, you bring in Aiden Fisher, who had 108 tackles for the Dukes last year. Jalen Walker, who's the other starting linebacker for JMU until he got hurt. Mikel Kamara as well on the defensive line. James Carpenter. And then you see his philosophy of production over potential in the transfer portal, bringing in D'Angelo Pons, who was a freshman All-American at JMU. Darius Doss, who was all FCS All-American, and don't have a lot of sample size against Power 5 teams, but when they did play Power 5 teams, they performed decently. Now, can they do it for 12 games? We'll see, but his philosophy is production over potential. He'd rather have the guy who has played 25, 30 games at a lower level than somebody that has sat on the bench at, Georgia for 2 years and is like, I just want to play.
Stylistically, what do you think Indiana is gonna look like this year?
It is. I don't think they're going to run the option like they did last year under Walt Bell, which was a unmitigated disaster. But they'll spread out, play 4 wide receivers on offense. They'll tailor to the offense. They'll tailor the offense to the personnel that they have, and Cignetti has done that every year. He's had different style of quarterbacks at JMU. Each of those guys went on to win Conference Player of the Year, Conference Offensive Player of the Year, and things like that. So, it'll be 1 back, 4 wide receivers, a tight end. It'll be more spread. The defense, it's kind of hard to base it off of what you saw in the spring because nobody runs the defense in the spring, and IU only tackled in the spring game. That was the only practice that they tackled, full tackled at, and stuff like that. But they'll have an attacking defensive line. JMU's defensive line led all the FBS teams in tackles for loss last year. So it's going to be different, and I think the attitude is going to be different. If you go back to when IU was successful under Tom Allen in 2019 and 2020, he had that attacking defense of Kane Womack, who's now the defensive coordinator at Alabama. So, be aggressive, and he's going to bring in guys who know that defense and who have been productive in the past.
No doubt about it. Sammy Jacobs, HoosierHuddle.com, joining us to talk about Indiana football, who is indeed on the schedule. There will be a game at some point during the day on October 19th. It'll be in Bloomington. Sammy, we appreciate you joining, man. Enjoy the rest of the offseason camp and the beginning of the season.
All right. Thank you.
All right. That's Sammy Jacobs of the HoosierHuddle.com. 11, 2:30, 3, or 6:30. Whichever way you'd like to go.
I mean, we've already eliminated so many times. People forget there's 24 hours in a day.
I don't know what to make of that group. They're obvious. I mean, they're picked second to last in the league. Frankly, I don't expect much, but they got a bunch of guys who came from James Madison, know the system and stuff like that. Like, you should be starting from kind of a nice little platform. And I really like the idea that they have a kind of a soft run up to the really difficult portion of the schedule.
It's one of those things that if they win those games they're supposed to win, and at the end of the season their record looks pretty decent, we're all going to go, should have seen that coming with Cignetti has won everywhere he's been, and don't I feel stupid for picking them 17th in the Big Ten 1620 The Zone media poll.
It is amazing the point that he just made there at the end, on that, what was it, 2020, right? 2020 they were pretty good. Yeah. 2021 was that night. So 2020 they went 6-2 in the COVID year, which, they lost to Ole Miss in the Outback Bowl. It was a good team. And 2021 they went 2-10. 2022 they went 4-8. They went 3-9. They had a 9-win. It was 9-Windiana at some point, right? Must have been 19. Let me go back here real quick. 8-5 in 19. But look at his coaching staff. Tom Allen was in his third season. His offensive coordinator just hired fresh out of Fresno State. That's Kalen DeBoer. His defensive coordinator, his first year, giving him a chance, hiring him out of South Alabama. That's Kane Womack. That's the head coach and the defensive coordinator at Alabama at the moment. Life comes at you fast, Josh.
I received an email from Sammy.
Sammy? Did he say, it was great to talk to you guys. I love you?
It was close. He said, thanks, guys. Sorry if there was a crying baby in the background. We have a 3-week-old. Look forward to previewing the game later this season.
Perfect.